Hello everybody and welcome. It's Karen. I'm glad you're here because today I am looking at border dies. These are all from Paper Rose Studio and they make some absolutely beautiful border dies. So the one I'm using here is the Spotty Line border die and I love this one. It makes me think of a fence somehow. Now I've discovered the Distress Mica sprays or the stains. So you're going to see that a couple of times in this video, but look at that shine. So that is the Tart Cranberry. And all I've done is I sprayed it on a piece of card and I've put it behind this Spotty Line border die and it is just beautiful. It shines, it's got just the perfect amount of wow factor to it. And I'm using these Christmas Friends die cuts from Paper Rose Studio, and any of these would work on this. So I truly think this would be a great card to make for some batch Christmas card making. But you can see they all coordinate because that Tart Cranberry is the perfect red to go with those die cuts. So I'm gluing my die cut border piece. I'm just putting some glue on the first and the last of those little lines, and then I glue it right directly onto that cranberry stained piece of card. And I'm just pressing that down, and you'll see I chose the little deer to go on this one today. Really, I think that whole collection could be done with this border die and that stain. But I'm just placing these little die cut pieces in behind that deer, sort of figuring out where I want it all to go, and just gluing them down from the back to the front. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just trying to figure out where to put him here and what position he should be in. So I love the fact that with this border die, you can have things coming through it. And I've done it before using the poppy border die and just having the poppies come through this, which was really quite pretty. So think of that. If you've got this die, think what else you could have coming through. There could be flowers that you've got that you want coming through, or leaves, or other little animals coming through, but it's quite versatile, I think. So there's the finished card. All I did was I added on that little Happy Holidays ticket, which is from that same die cut collection, and just a few pearls. And honestly, this card took no time at all. I think it was less than 20 minutes probably. Okay, so moving on. Now I'm going to do a 2-for-1. And so I've got this gum leaf border die. And I had this little piece of alcohol inked Yupo that was a scrap from something else, but I thought it would be perfect with this particular die. So I'm cutting from a white card front, the border die, and I've put it down at the bottom third, and then I'm also going to center this on my alcohol inked Yupo paper, and I'll die cut that as well. And before I take it off my cutting platform, I'm putting some press and seal on it because that will keep all those little die cut pieces in place. So for the first card, I'm going to do a die cut inlay. So I've glued that white die cut piece onto my card base, and now I've taken the positive off and left the negative pieces on that piece of press and seal. And then all I have to do is put a little bit of glue in and, slot back in the matching piece of the alcohol inked paper. So again, this card was really quick and easy as well. And what's nice about it is it's very one-dimensional. With those little pieces going inset, there's no extra dimension to this card. So if you're worried about that, this is a great one for that. And then I just trimmed away the excess little pieces there. And that was that card pretty much done. Now for the positive piece, I die cut 2 more pieces from white cardstock, and I'm just going to glue those together. So this one will have a little more dimension to it. So I'm just lining those up. And then I've glued the alcohol inked piece onto the top of that. Now on my card front, I have got a little piece of double-sided adhesive tape here, and I'm using my grid lines on my mat to center this. And I'm just pressing that down now into that lower third again. This die could be oriented vertically as well. I did look at that, but the sentiment I had worked better for landscape, so that's what I did. But keep that in mind, it definitely could go up and down as opposed to horizontally. But I'm just placing that alcohol inked piece down over that adhesive, that double-sided adhesive, and pressing it in. And I did use the release paper to help press that in because in between those leaves it's still exposed adhesive. And then I trimmed off the edges, and now I've got some micro beads here. And I put my card into a little container because these micro beads will bounce everywhere on your desk. So I just find that easier to keep it in a little container of some sort. But they do stick quite well to that double-sided adhesive. And I'm just pressing them in slightly there, but you can tell it really does stick right away. Now, if you didn't have microbeads, you could put glitter in there. I'm sure that would work just as well and do exactly the same thing. You're just going to have to press it in. So once I get the excess out, I can just put those beads back in their jar. And then you definitely want to press these in and just make sure that they are really adhering to that double-sided adhesive tape. So I'm just going along with the release paper to push in as best I can. So there are the two finished cards. It was my 2-for-1 for sure. I did do a little extra alcohol inked Yupo paper for the sentiments. But there's the first card. I've just added a couple of thin lines of gold mirror cards and a few pearls, and that was it. And then here is the second card, and I don't know if you can see those beads terribly well. They really give a fun texture though. It's very pebbly feeling. And I just added a couple of pearls to that, or 3 pearls. So another idea for these border dies is to cut them multiple times in order to make essentially a cover plate. I already had in my stash 2 of these little borders cut from other projects, and I just had stored them with my die. So I noticed that if I rotated one of these around, that middle snowflake seemed to match up fairly well. And then it almost looked like a bit of a wreath of snowflakes going around, and I thought that was quite pretty. So here I've dug out my mica stains again, and I've got these now in Shiny Bauble, Merry Mint, and Winter Frost, and I think those are the Christmas sprays. But I'm just covering a piece of card. It's a larger size. The actual card itself ends up being 6.5 inches tall by 5 inches wide. So it fits into a 5x7 envelope, but I'm just covering it with that stain. And I don't show you that until a bit later because I forgot. But I've got it covered here with that snowflake stencil, and I've got this Distress Snowfall paste I'm putting on. This paste dries translucent. I didn't want a lot of white snowflakes in behind the white die cut piece, so this one sort of fit the bill. It gave all the texture without a lot of white in the background. So there's the actual stained piece of card at the front that I forgot to show you, but that's it with the paste on. And I'm just filling up the bottom of this, just carefully putting this on at the bottom and finishing that up. So I put that aside to dry, and then from these 2¼ by 6.5 inch strips of white card, I die cut those borders. And it is a little bit long, but I needed a little extra on the edges to help rotate that one piece and so that they would line up. So because it's a bit long, I'm just using my scissors to cut right up, straight up to the cut line on the border die. And I had to do that on all 4 edges actually at the ends. And then I'm just putting a little bead of glue along that center strip and lining up this snowflake with the one on the left and just pressing all of that down. And it really does look like a nice little wreath around that center snowflake. Now you'll see it's kind of ironic I'm doing this because I end up covering up that center snowflake. So I don't know, if you don't cover it up, this is a good thing to do. Now I wanted a bit more shimmer on my card, so I'm using this Nuvo Glimmer Paste in Moonstone. And I'm running out, so I didn't want to put it on those strips of card because they were going to be die cut. So I'm just putting it on my glass mat, and I can scoop up what goes through and just put it back on. So that just seemed the easiest to me. Now there's the dried card front, and it's a very subtle effect. There's texture to the feel, but those snowflakes are really quite translucent. And that stain with it is just gorgeous. So I wanted to add a bit of white spatter, so I've got some acrylic paint. I've just got a little bead of that and a bit of water. And I've got that on my glass block or my acrylic block, and I'm just going to spatter some white onto this background just to add a bit more interest in behind the snowflakes. And then I set that aside to dry, and now that everything is dry, I could put it together. So I know you can't see this in the video. There is a reason why I'm sticking that in the middle, and it's because I can see through to the translucent snowflakes behind the openings in the white border. And so I was just trying to line it up so I got the best vision of the snowflakes in behind. So that's why it's stuck smack in the middle there. But it seems to work. I know you can't really see it here, but in real life it is there, I promise. So then I just trimmed that down. I did put it on glass blocks to dry because there is a lot of texture from that paste. So I just wanted to be sure that that white snowflake border adhered. And there it is trimmed down, and here is my Merry Christmas chunky die. I've cut that from silver foil cardstock and put it on a vellum background. And I'm trying to figure out where to put it, and I just kept going back to the middle. So I ended up covering up all that work I did to match up the snowflake. But that's life. So I'm just gluing that down. I did put it on the blocks again, and then I just added a few pearls to that one, and it was done. But look at the shine from that stain and then from that paste. It's really quite pretty. Now that was using 2 die cut borders and piecing them together, but you could also just from one card front die cut twice, and that's what the card on the right is. I had posted this card a little while ago, but I just die cut that border twice on the one panel, and then I put the poinsettias on the front of that. So that's an idea. And again, this was in one of my last videos, and it's exactly the same thing. I had one panel that I cut twice with the border in between and used it that way. So keep that in mind if you're going to be putting 2 die cut borders together. So there's some ideas for you on how to use these beautiful borders. Paper Rose truly has some gorgeous ones. Thank you for joining me, everybody, and I hope you're having a great day. See you next time.